Picture this. A quiet suburban cul-de-sac, the kind where every lawn is mowed to military precision and Christmas lights are regulated by committee, suddenly erupts into chaos as a screeching woman dials 911, claiming her neighbor's weapon is about to unleash hell. But that weapon? It's a fancy tripod gadget that looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie, and the man standing beside it isn't some rogue terrorist. He's a widower trying to prune his bushes in peace. Little does she know, her fake panic is about to boomerang so hard it'll dismantle her entire empire of petty rules and rubber-stamped fines. The sun was dipping low over Willow Creek Estates, casting long shadows across the identical beige houses that lined the streets like obedient soldiers. I just moved back to my late wife's childhood home, a modest ranch-style place at the end of Maple Drive, hoping the familiar creak of the porch swing and the distant hum of the neighborhood lake would muffle the echo of Emily's absence. Cancer had taken her 6 months ago, leaving me, Jack Harlan, a shell of the guy who'd once navigated high-stakes boardrooms as the state's chief auditor. Now I was on personal leave, which was code for hiding from the world while I figured out how to breathe without her. That first week, I kept to myself, unpacking boxes and tackling the overgrown yard. Simple stuff, therapeutic, even, until the doorbell rang like an accusation. Standing there was Patricia Klein, the HOA president, with her perfectly coiffed bob haircut and a smile that could curdle milk. She thrust a clipboard at me like it was the 10 Commandments. "Mr. Harlan, welcome to Willow Creek. I'm Pat, and I run things around here to keep our community pristine. I noticed you're trimming those hedges without prior approval. Per Section 4.2 of the Covenants, all landscaping changes must be submitted in triplicate." Her voice was all honeyed politeness, but her eyes scanned my yard like a hawk spotting a mouse. I blinked, still in my grief fog, and muttered something about it being my property. She chuckled, that condescending titter that says, "Oh, honey, you have no idea. Everything here is our property, in a way. We maintain standards. I'll let it slide this time, but next, fines $100. She sauntered off, leaving me staring at the door, wondering if I'd accidentally time-traveled to a dystopian sitcom. The next morning, a cream envelope was taped to my mailbox, flapping in the breeze like a white flag of surrender. Violation notice. Unauthorized vegetation removal. Fine. $150. I read it twice, chuckling bitterly at the absurdity. Vegetation removal? I'd clipped a few branches that were scraping my truck. Emily would have laughed. She always said HOAs were busybody bureaucracies for people with too much time and too little soul. I crumpled the paper and tossed it in the recycling, figuring ignoring it was the path of least resistance. But Pat wasn't one to be ignored. By evening, whispers rippled through the neighborhood Facebook group. I caught snippets on my phone. "New guy at 12 Maple thinks he's above the rules. Watch out, he's probably one of those anti-government types." I scrolled, amused at first, then annoyed. They'd photoshopped my truck with devil horns. Classy. Days blurred into a routine of petty jabs. Another notice arrived for non-conforming mailbox height. Mine was a 1/4 inch too low, apparently. Fine. $75. I burned it in the fire pit that night, watching the flames dance like they were mocking Pat's authority. Then came the email blast. Community alert. Resident at 12 Maple has been observed with excessive outdoor lighting after 9 p.m. That was my porch light, left on because I couldn't sleep. The shunning started subtly. Neighbors who'd waved now crossed the street, eyes glued to their phones. At the community pool, a guy named Ted muttered, "Heard you're causing trouble. Pat says you're not paying dues." I wasn't even in the HOA. Emily's house predated the development, grandfathered in as independent. But facts didn't matter in Pat's kingdom. She was the queen of selective truth, ruling with a scepter of bylaws and a crown of passive-aggressive newsletters. One afternoon, a shiny SUV pulled up, emblazoned with Klein Inspections LLC. Out stepped Pat's brother, Gary, with a toolkit and a grin wider than a used car salesman's. "Hey there, Jack. Sis sent me for the mandatory home safety check. HOA rules, every 5 years we inspect for compliance. Just a quick look-see." He poked around my garage, tapping walls with exaggerated seriousness, sighing like he discovered Atlantis. Oof, bad news, buddy. Your foundation's got settling issues. Could be a hazard. Quotes $5,000 to fix it right. He slid over a glossy estimate, his eyes darting like he expected applause. I stared at him, seeing the scam for what it was. A family hustle wrapped in community service. Emily had dealt with grifters in her charity work. She'd have called this extortion with a smile. I pocketed the quote without a word, watching him fidget. You gonna sign? Pat says it's urgent. I'll think on it, I replied flatly. He left in a huff, and that night, the paper fueled a particularly satisfying bonfire. From my window, I spotted Pat's car idling down the block, Gary hopping in with a shrug. I couldn't hear them, but I imagined the dialogue. He's not biting, Pat. Just stared like a zombie. Her response, tight-lipped, he's playing tough, thinks he's smarter than us. But everyone's got a breaking point. I sipped my coffee, the grief still heavy but now laced with a spark of curiosity. Who was this woman, turning a neighborhood into her personal fiefdom? I started observing quietly, methodically. Pat's house was immaculate, of course, but her inspections only hit certain homes. The ones that didn't donate to her community fund. Maybe? Or those who questioned her at meetings. It was all so ridiculously transparent. Like a bad spy novel where the villain monologues her plans. The escalation hit like a comedy of errors. A bulletin board notice appeared. Non-compliant properties. 12 Maple, multiple infractions. Residents advised to report suspicious activity. Suspicious? Like breathing? The neighborhood turned into a surveillance state overnight. Mrs. Jenkins from next door peeked over the fence, whispering, Pat says you're lowering property values. I nodded politely, but inside, I was cataloging. Then came the big one. Workers in Klein-branded vests showed up at the edge of my yard, hammering signs into the communal green space. A strip of grass leading to the lake that Emily and I had picnicked on for years. Private property. Willow Creek Estates club access only. No trespassing. The signs were gaudy, fake official, with Pat's HOA logo plastered on them. But I knew better. That strip was county-owned parkland, open to all. Public records I'd pulled up on my laptop confirmed it. Pat wasn't just fining. She was stealing land for her pet project, a members-only lounge she'd bragged about in newsletters. I stood on my porch, coffee going cold, as rage bubbled up. Not the hot flash kind, but a cold, precise fury. Emily had loved that spot. It was where we'd scattered her ashes, unofficially, under the willows. Pat's greed was desecrating a memory, all for some upscale schmoozing spot. Enough enduring. Time to audit. I didn't charge over yelling. That was her style, emotional fireworks for maximum drama. Mine was quieter, sharper. From my garage, I hauled out my old work gear. A high-end digital transit level, GPS-linked and precise enough to map a city block. As the state's chief auditor, I'd overseen countless property disputes, armed with facts over fury. I set up the tripod at the property line, calibrating it with deliberate clicks. Satellites synced, maps loaded on my tablet, official county plats showing the exact boundaries. For hours, I worked methodically, driving fluorescent yellow stakes for my private land and official green ones for the public park. Each hammer strike was a silent gotcha. One green stake went right beside Pat's sign, dwarfing her lie with undeniable truth. She watched from her window. I saw the curtains twitch. By noon, her panic manifested. She marched over, face flushed, clipboard flapping. What in God's name are you doing? This is vandalism. You're marking our common area. Her voice cracked with that faux authority, like a mall cop busting a kid for loitering. I straightened, meeting her eyes calmly. Actually, Pat, this is public land. Check the deeds. Your signs? Illegal encroachment. She sputtered. You have no right. I'm calling the board. The cops. You're threatening our community's integrity. I almost laughed at the irony, her integrity built on kickbacks and bullying. As she dialed 911, hyperventilating into the phone about a dangerous intruder with a weapon. I stood still, hands visible. Game on. Sirens wailed, slicing through the afternoon calm like a bad joke. Two county deputies rolled up, lights flashing, as Pat performed her Oscar-worthy meltdown. "He's got a weapon. Look at that thing. It's aimed right at our property. He's trying to steal our land." She pointed wildly at my transit level, her finger trembling for effect. The younger deputy, sweat beading on his brow, hand twitching near his holster, eyed the gleaming instrument warily. "Sir, step back from the device. Hands where I can see 'em." I complied, boots crunching gravel, feeling not fear but a weary amusement. Grief had numbed me to real threats. This was amateur theater. The older deputy, Sheriff Hayes, scanned the scene with seasoned skepticism. "Ma'am, calm down. What's this about a weapon?" Pat ramped it up. "He's not even in the HOA, he's a squatter, intimidating us with corporate spy gear. He threatened me when I asked him to stop." My gaze drifted to her signs, bold lies on public soil. Hayes turned to me. "Your side, sir?" This was the pivot. I didn't blurt my title. That'd be too easy, too unearned. Instead, I pointed to the stakes. "Sheriff, we're on mixed land here. Those yellow ones? My private boundary, per county records. The green? Official parkland border. Ms. Klein's signs are on protected public property. Violation of Code 45 to 209. Pat interjected, voice shrill. "He's lying. That's our greenbelt for the club. We maintain it." Hayes raised a brow. "Club?" She faltered. "Well, future amenities. For dues-paying members." I continued, voice steady. "And the fines she slapped on me? Bogus. Her brother's inspections? A scam. I've got the quotes, extortion plain as day." The younger deputy's confusion grew. He whispered to Hayes, "This thing looks like surveying equipment, not a gun." Pat's facade cracked. "It's a laser. He could blind someone." I suppressed a smirk, hysterical but hilariously off-base. Hayes inspected the transit. "Sir, who are you exactly?" Time for the reveal. "Jack Harlan, State Chief Auditor. That weapon is a transit level. I use it to expose frauds like this." I pulled up the grant app on my phone. Hayes' department had one pending for park improvements, sitting on my desk. "Your funding request? Solid, but seeing you here enforcing a land grab makes me rethink approvals." Hayes' face paled. The power flip was palpable. He holstered his weapon, turning to Pat. "Ma'am, false report's a crime. These signs? Coming down." Pat's triumphant mask shattered into comical disbelief. "You can't. I'm protecting the neighborhood." But as deputies photographed her signs, she deflated, stammering excuses. I walked away, dialing my deputy auditor. "Sarah, full audit on Willow Creek HOA subpoenas, financials, everything. Mobilize the team." The local farce was over. The real reckoning began. The next dawn broke with a bureaucratic blitz. A fleet of state vehicles, sedans and vans with official seals, descended on the HOA office like polite terminators. No drama, just efficiency. Auditors in suits, laptops humming, dissecting records with surgical precision. Sarah led the charge, her voice crisp. "We need all ledgers, minutes, and contracts from the last decade." Pat arrived mid-morning, blustering. "This is harassment. We're a volunteer board." But her protests bounced off like rain on a windshield. The survey team, using my stakes as ground zero, deployed drones and radar, confirming her clubland was 40 feet into public territory. Encroachment confirmed. One tech noted dryly. Pat snapped. "It's for the community. Yoga classes, wine tastings, elevating standards." The irony hung thick. Her elevation funded by siphon dues. Financials unraveled next. Gary's invoices, inflated by 200%. Kickbacks looping back to Pat's personal account via consulting fees. One auditor quipped under his breath, "This isn't an HOA. It's a family ATM." Residents, sensing the shift, lined up with stories, show don't tell in living color. Old Mr. Lopez. She fined me $500 for my rose bushes being too vibrant. Then Gary fixed my fence for triple market rate. A mom, teary. My kid's swing set was non-compliant. Paid fines or face lien, worked doubles to cover. The tales piled up. Retaliatory inspections, bogus ordinances from the Stone Age. Pat's Trat order was a veil for control freakery. Her mumbles during questioning pure gold. It's for harmony. Without rules, it'd be chaos. Like his yard. But chaos? Neighbors were thriving without her thumb on the scale. Arrests came quietly 3 days in. Investigators at Pat's door. Patricia Klein, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and public land theft. She wilted. No fight left, just a mumbled. But I was helping. Gary got cuffed at his office, surrounded by phony bids. The neighborhood exhaled. Oppression lifted like fog burning off. 6 months on, Willow Creek breathed free. The HOA dissolved. Assets funneled to restitution. Refunds rolling in like lottery wins. Yards bloomed chaotic. Purple shutters, herb gardens, even a gnome army on one lawn. Laughter echoed where whispers once ruled. I stayed, turning the reclaimed park strip into the Emily Harlan Peace Path. Benches, plaques honoring her love for open spaces. At the dedication, folks gathered, toasting the flip. To no more clipboard tyrants, one cheered. But the fight echoed wider. In the state capitol, I testified, HOAs like this aren't guardians. They're unchecked mini-dictatorships. My bill, Emily's Act, mandated oversight, ethics boards, fraud penalties. Passed unanimously, a jab at every Pat out there. So, was Pat the villain or just a product of a system that lets busybodies run amok? HOA rules. Necessary order or recipe for abuse? You tell me, did justice prevail or was it overkill?